when you first start out making these changes, you may only get it right 10 or 20% of the time. And hopefully, you know, after you've done it for a year or two, it may be up to sort of 80% of the time. But I do not get it right 100% of the time, and I've been doing it for years and years and years, and I think I'm reasonably good at it. But I don't always get it right. The difficulty is, the whole business about healing our reactivity is really quite a long journey. It really just takes time. Remember, we're dealing with programming that was in place, and we did it for a long time before we got to the point of understanding we're programming and doing something about it. So you've got to give yourself a little bit of slack. Just say, okay, as long as I'm getting better, as long as I'm catching things better, as long as we're talking things through better.
It's not how often you fall over, it's how quickly you pick yourself up.
Very good. Very good. It's good to have my wife here. She can describe what I do occasionally.
I'll talk about it.
Pick yourself up. Can we start again? I was just speaking to the Counsellors Association 2 days ago, and I was talking to them about some of the early theorists that we counsellors have been trained in. A guy called Carl Rogers, who was sort of the father of counselling, and two others who came after him, a guy called Murray Bowen, who was a family therapist, and Virginia Satir, who was also a family therapist. And these guys were really good, they knew a lot. They didn't know everything. And we now know a lot more than they knew. I mean, Carl Rogers was doing this in the 50s and 60s, so you know, he set the groundwork. And I said to this group of counsellors, I was training counsellors in client-centred counselling 12 years ago at Vision College here in Christchurch. And at that time, I didn't myself, and I've been a counsellor for 20 years then, I didn't realise myself the inadequacies in the counselling model. And one of the big inadequacies I'm going to talk about now, one of the things that Carl Rogers basically did, and I've got to be careful to speak for him because he may argue the point, but one of the things I understood he did was he said, if you help people come to within themselves, they'll come to their own solutions. If you help people to come back to what's going on inside of me, they'll come to their own solutions. But there's a flaw in that argument. And the flaw is that in actual fact, we are programmed by childhood, and part of the programming disconnects us from ourselves and even from how to get out of difficult situations. And the thing that disconnects us from the most are our needs. That's why I'm going to talk about needs. Because the truth is, we really get into trouble when we don't actually know what our needs are, or how to express them, or how to ask for them to be met. We grew up with parents who didn't know their own needs, and they would get into trouble with each other because of that. So, for example, I can't remember in my family, even though my parents were really good parents, did a lot for me, I can't remember anyone saying, let's sit down and talk this out and hear everyone's viewpoint so we can work out a way forward. I don't think in my parents' generation listening skills were particularly good at all, let alone negotiating skills and so on. So let's look at this needs problem. So the first thing is that what my needs tell me matters for me to get met. I may not always manage to get them met, but it certainly matters and I need to listen to them. Number two, what my distress tells me would help me right now. So when we don't get needs met, what's really going on is some emotion is going on that says, I want to be heard, or understood, or worked with, or helped, something. But the trouble is we're often not really good at either knowing that that's what our emotions are asking, or actually expressing that. So what pleases me to be able to do to support my partner is also something we may be able to touch with. For example, if you're an avoidant and you're busy doing tasks You may be completely out of touch with the fact that actually this relationship right now is suffering because I'm focusing so much on tasks, I'm not focusing on us. So you could very, very easily miss the needs of the relationship because you're too much caught in your attachment pattern. If you're an anxious style and you're getting worked up and highly emotional, you might have to remind yourself, this is probably not helping my relationship. My partner is probably struggling now because I'm all worked up and angry and frustrated, and that probably isn't helping them to connect with me or helping them to be happy. Number 4, what I must let my partner know without blame does not work for me. So maybe I say to my partner, actually, I really don't have the time to do the dishes right now, and I'm not in the mood, so this doesn't work for me right now. Can we talk about that again later? So that would be an example where I need to let my partner know that I'm not up for doing dishes, it doesn't work for me, that I need to put it out there and state it. This is being expressive of your needs. Number 5, what I worry about, I will talk about so as to get support to feel calm and safe. So if I'm worried about something, it's very easy, particularly as an avoidant, not to talk about it. Like worried about money, just don't talk about it. So what happens is I then stress myself out. My partner doesn't know why I'm stressed. My partner starts to wonder why has she done something that in fact I'm upset about because I'm not talking about what goes on for me. So what can happen is I'm not then feeling calmer and supported because I'm not talking out something my partner could help me with. Number 6, I would like support from myself and partner to optimize what matters to me in life. So I might say, okay, I know I need a holiday. But instead of saying to my partner, actually, I need a holiday, where are you at about that? The lack of communication means I then try to solve my own problem. I don't check in with my partner, where's she at about a holiday? It doesn't get discussed. So this whole thing about being alone and not talking about things isn't useful. And avoidants have a tendency to be loners. They don't talk as much. But also, the anxious style is going to get wrapped up if, in fact, their needs are not heard and understood and met. So we just have different ways of responding to the unmet needs tendency. You with me? So, here are some unhelpful ways to get needs met. Well, actually unhelpful ways to hopefully get needs met that are unlikely to work. And these are common. This is what you'll know happens in a relationship near you. First of all, de-stressing by dumping feeling preferences on the other. I don't want to do this right now. I'm busy. Go. So that would be an example of dumping because your preferences aren't being spoken and talked about. Number 2, de-stressing by taking recourse to wants that serve neither self or partner. And the most obvious wants. So I don't know if you had a chance to read chapter 13. In the language that I'm using, wants are what we do if needs aren't being met. So an example of a want would be if I'm thirsty to have alcohol, let's say, rather than water. Or if I'm stressed, to have alcohol rather than talk about it. So what happens is we take recourse to unhelpful strategies to get needs met. Now, people do this all the time. We have a major alcohol problem in our culture. We have a smoking problem. We have lots of problems of people doing things that really don't work for them. But that's because, of course, no one trained them way, way back. Oh, you've got a problem? Come to me and we'll talk about it. Now, we'll get it off your chest, we'll talk about it. So what happens is we develop these unhelpful wants in order to try and get stuff off our chest. Number 3, ramping up or distancing big time is ways to manage conflict. So when people get worked up, when they distance themselves, that's also a want. It's not really a strategy that helps. It might calm you down, but it really doesn't help the relationship and doesn't help you move forward. So there isn't a good example of really the anxious and the avoidant patterns. When they get more extreme, They are meeting wants. They're not really meeting needs. Number 4, expecting others to know your own needs without expressing these or asking for help to get them met. This happens a lot where people think, well, can't you see that this just need doing? Why are you walking past the sink? It's not that they've been sitting there half a day. Why? In other words, surely you can see they need to be done. That's because we're not very good at saying, hey, look, I've got no energy to do dishes. Would you be up for it? We don't tend to communicate it. We just expect our partner to know what we know and what we would prefer. Number 5, resentfully expecting others to sort out differences because it is they who are the problem. What happens in most relationships, not just yours, most relationships, is because this communication thing's really bad and people's needs are not getting expressed, let alone met, resentments develop. So, for example, my partner becomes resentful that I'm leaving dishes in the sink. To begin with, it's inconvenient. Then they get a bit pissed off about it, but eventually resentment occurs. Now, the difficulty is, resentment then becomes a theme in most relationships. And resentment is like a cancer for love. So the more resentful you're getting, the more love is starting to diminish. So people that we really, really cared about, now what we're doing is we're getting resentful. Not only that, we now see them through the window of resentment. So I see my partner not as the person who I love, but every now and again doesn't do dishes. I now see them as the person who doesn't do dishes. Right? So that becomes the total focus. Does this make sense? And this is scary, because once resentment starts, we start to see our partner not exclusively, but more often than not through the windows of that resentment. And all that's happening really is miscommunication. Everyone's really well-intentioned, but the communication just isn't bridging gaps and differences. You with me? It's scary. Unmet needs, or needs we don't express or ask support for, or the lack of talking, means we tend to start digging a hole for ourselves. So, here are some anxieties, especially due to fears of disempowerment, that often masquerade as needs. So these are not real needs. These are really anxieties, but they've arisen because at some point or other needs have not been met. And the first one is the most common. Perfectionism. Now this is different than being sorted. Perfectionism is where you're anxious that, in fact, on your page 237 deals with the drivers. I must be perfect, I must please others, I must hurry up, I must try hard, I must cope well. So what these become perfectionist tendencies. And I can tell you that the most common reason couples come to me is because they're arguing about the cleaning and the tidying of the house. That is the most common conflict reason. And you can see the reason that happens is because they haven't talked about it. They haven't got a middle ground. But normally what occurs is one person has a higher standard than another, which means one person is more anxious than another. Now, there's no right or wrong way to be, and I want to talk about this perfectionism thing, because I learned some really cool lessons when I was a school guidance counsellor. What I noticed is that the teachers and the students were often at opposite ends on the perfectionist spectrum. The teachers said, homework needs to be on time, it should all be done, blah, 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 right? We've got to be in class on time, all this. And the naughty kids that I was dealing with had a completely different set of values. They said, oh, turn up to school if there's nothing better going on anywhere else. And sometimes the principal would say, well, if you don't turn up to school, I have to get your parents in here. And they said, well, I don't care what my parents say, I don't care. And the principal might say, well, you'll have to find yourself another school. And they said, I don't care, thank you, what school I go to. School would pointless anyway, so I don't care which one. They just had an argument for everything to counter the argument at the other end of the perfectionist scale. So I had the perfectionist staff at one end, the imperfectionist children at the other end, and then what happened was they battled around who was right. Now this is really interesting because this happens in institutions everywhere, not just in families. The truth is both extremes are not functioning. You can see if you're really down the imperfect end, you're just doing everything messily, not tidying anything, or you place it in mess. That's not useful. And frequently, kids talk to me about the motorbike in the front room and how there was oil on the carpet because of that. Like, you know, they're extreme at this end often, and the staff and so on were really trying to get the kids through exams and study hard. Well, they were up this end. The truth is both extremes are really not functional. There is really no way to say where functional is. Somewhere in the middle. And most couples are really somewhere in the middle. But what happens is if in fact your view of getting the needs for tidiness or the needs for cleanliness met are higher than your partner, then what happens is you feel you're right and they're not up to scratch. Now this happens a lot. The crucial thing is most people are quite sorted. Most people do not have their motorbike using oil in the front room, right? Most people don't have that. Most people are actually somewhere in the middle, but they can still argue about that. Having to have your own way. Now this is sort of an extension of perfectionism, because when you have to have your own way, you get anxious if it's not going to be done my way. And so when you start to get one person having to have their own way, of course you're getting control versus controlled. That's going to where that goes. Number 3, concerns about security, safety when the odds of a problem occurring are minuscule. Now this is very common also. I'll give you an example. I think I gave you an example a couple before. He was really, really worried about the cables. I think I talked to you about this problem. That one of them would trip over the cables and that's unsafe. He had all sorts of areas of unsafety. His father was a fanatic about safety. But you can see, another couple, he argued that in fact the way she drives is unsafe. She's never had an accident, but the way she drives, in his view, is unsafe. This is another example. How do you deal with people who've got different ideas about safety? You have to negotiate middle ground. And sometimes it's hard if one person's anxiety is really high. Number 4, having to have a partner hear you in order to feel calm. Now, the anxious person is most likely to be doing this. The previous 3 are more likely to be actually avoidance, but not always. Particularly number 1 around tidiness and cleanliness can be the anxious style. The number 4, having a partner hear you in order to feel calm. Your partner can't always be available to hear you. And it's nice if they are, but they can't always. Sometimes you've got to process things alone, but the anxious style likes to connect in order to process things. It just can't always happen. Having to take time out to regain calm, which is the avoidant thing. Having to take time out. Now, frequently they don't have to really take that much time out, and frequently they could say, look, I'm over this a bit, can I come back to you in half an hour? They don't tend to do that. They take time out and they come back in a couple of days. And frequently not suggesting they come back and talk again, they just want to drop the whole problem. Number 6, having to have a partner buy into your viewpoints. Very, very common. We get anxious. Things aren't going well, so rather than negotiate, we want our partner to buy into our viewpoint. So what happens is you get into the right versus right argument, both trying to trump each other with really, really good viewpoints. Number 7, having to have childcare done your way. So what happens is people get anxious about their children, and then they, in a sense, get into the right versus right argument around children. So these are some of the common ways in which needs theoretically are being met, but really their anxiety is not needs. And a good discussion would address them. Questions? Thoughts? Sorry, you're too stuck. Right. I'll go and talk about this, and maybe I'll talk about this at the same time, get you to talk about needs and values. So chapter 13 talks about the difference between needs, wants and values. Values are the sort of moral fibre, moral compass by which we operate in a relationship. So here are some things that come up. Here are some useful values. What matters to me does not have to be imposed on others. That's a really, really good value to have. If it matters to me, it doesn't mean others have to be the same as me. Number 2, I am committed to supporting my beloved if I can, even if their choices are not what I would choose. That can be challenging for some people because they feel like they're going to lose track of what they want if they go down the track that my partner wants. Number 3, I commit to not harming or controlling anyone under any circumstances. Now that's a really good value if you tend to slip into wanting it my way. Number 4, what I say and do must be ethical, kind, and have integrity. Believe me, there are a couple of things that really shake the cage of relationship. One of them is dishonesty. The dishonest people are mostly avoidants. Now, I'll tell you why they're dishonest and when they get to be dishonest. Not all avoidants, but some. The first is when they actually cannot face telling their partner the truth because of the waves it will create. Oh, where were you tonight? I just with my mates, we just had a beer and I came home. In other words, I don't want to tell you the whole story, because if I tell you the whole story, you'll ask me questions, and then you'll be bothered, and so what I'll do is I'll just tell you a little white lie in order to keep everything cool, calm, collected. That is an avoidance strategy for keeping everything from getting messy. The other thing that avoidants do is they're more likely to have affairs. And what happens when they have affairs, of course, they cloud all that they've been doing in deceit. And the deceit, the lies, is far more difficult to heal than the actual affair itself. Because people have affairs for all sorts of reasons, and it's not necessarily a negative about the partner, surprisingly enough. But when there's deceit, what happens is the partner now thinks, oh, I'm married to a liar. I'm married to a liar. Even though it's only specific to keeping this off the radar so that you didn't get upset, they actually generalize it. So that's why I'm saying in number 4, the ethical, kind, and have integrity. It's very, very important never to get into dishonesty because it creates so many difficulties. Number 5, I work with my beloved to optimize the happiness of both of us. Requires conversation, what's best for you, what's best for me, and so on. Number 6, I want to support both of us getting our needs met as much as possible. And you can see, if you do those, you're likely to have a good way forward. But it requires communication. It requires time to talk about it. Here are some unhelpful values. What matters to me is all that matters. I choose to ignore suggestions that I'm being self-serving. Now this will happen because a person's anxious that they want things done their way. Secondly, the way I like things to be done because they're backed by sound logic is all that matters. It's a very common avoidance strategy. Look, I can tell you why this is going to work better this way. The fact that it's logical does not mean it's better. And in a relationship, logic doesn't make the relationship better. Discussion makes the relationship better. Number 3, there are times when I need to educate my beloved as to why he or she is wrong. That is not uncommon. You're like, I really need to tell you why you got it wrong. I was speaking with a couple just yesterday, and he basically keeps his finger on the purse strings. She's only allowed to spend anything over $100 because he's got to monitor anything above that, and what's more, she's got to be able to sell her argument. So she wanted to buy an item for the kitchen, and she had to basically sell her argument to him as to why that was going to be a good option. And he said, no, that's not the best. It was made of plastic, it doesn't have a long life, it's more expensive than other models. So what happened is they have a ding-dong argument if she ever wants to do anything or spend money herself. Can you see, it's controlling, but you see his anxiety drives it. So he's got to be able to see that that's not going to work for him. And number 5, happiness is based on doing what works best, in my not so humble opinion, and what I think works best is what works best, is best. Now, I can tell you, that may seem bizarre when you see those written up, but they drive lots of relationships. And it's anxiety behind it that really is the problem. Another one would be around children. So very often the anxious and insecure are more concerned around what the children are doing or not doing, and the avoidants are usually more flexible about that. So that's going to get the anxious and insecure person wound up. Okay. I hear a couple more values. Scream at my partner is what he or she deserves. In other words, because they're being so ridiculous, I've got to scream at them and actually bring them back into line. That's the way to control them, doing this ridiculous spending on items for the kitchen that aren't required, sort of thing. Number 7, I will close down as a means to punish my partner. That's an avoidant trick, particularly more narcissistic patterns. And number 8, I will make him or her pay for what they did to me. It's also a very narcissistic pattern, but also borderlines. People at the extremes can often want to get back their partners because they feel so bothered that their control is removed from their choices. Fun being in a relationship, isn't it? That's why we all want to be in one. So, I'm going to get you to talk about this. I want you now to get into, I want you to take your books with you if you can, because some of these insights will be good to record in your book. So I want you to get with another avoidant or another anxious secure type, right? You sort of know who those are in the room now, probably. So which need do you currently get met well in this relationship? Oh, I can talk to my partner about money. It's no problem. We can work that through. So what do we talk about well? Secondly, which need or value do you want to get better at expressing? Well, I'd like us to talk a little bit more about how do we connect. And, what can we do in the weekends to make sure we connect nicely, for example. Number 3, which need or value is missing in the way relationship dynamics unfold? Most likely the key value is going to be that we respect each other and try and work with what each other wants. That's the most likely value and need you're going to be missing. Which needs do you believe, number 4, which needs do you believe your partner may be wanting to have met, whether or not they're aware of this? Now, for example, if in fact your partner is the anxious type, they are probably wanting more connection, or more quality time, or more hugs, or more affection, because they're connectors. If in fact you're an avoidant, you might say, actually, well, the need I have is really to make sure I have some time out, or I go for runs more often, or I visit the gym, I take time out for myself. Because these are the needs specific to your attachment styles. The crucial thing is to get to know them. You just got to look at your life and say, what would I really like more of? And what do I imagine my partner would like more of? You ready for this? Okay. Find someone with your own attachment style, go and chat somewhere, and when we finish that, we'll have a coffee.